So when we tell people you have to take medication, they think, oh, this then for lifelong I'm stuck with this and so on. That worries them. But what doesn't worry them is that if your diabetes is not controlled, you can become blind. So what we say in the thali concept is, don't focus on your carbohydrate, don't focus on your rice and wheat or ragi or millets to start with. Half of that plate, you take the full plate, thali, divide it into half. Half of it should be filled with vegetables.
Is diabetes really reversible? Can you actually reverse diabetes?
So I have an ABCDEF mantra for diabetes reversal. So A is A1C. If your A1C is not very high, see normal is 5.6, up to 7 we say it's okay for a diabetic. Let's say it's 8, it is still reversal is possible. If it is 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, your chance of reversal goes down because you're having very severe diabetes.
Hello and welcome to South First. I am Chetna Belgare. Did you know that 1 in every 9 Indians has diabetes? Number of people, especially young adults diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, is increasing at an alarming rate, leading to serious health complications like heart disease, kidney failure, diabetes, foot, vision loss, liver failure, etc. Managing diabetes is becoming tougher day by day. Today on this show, to discuss some challenges of this disease, we have Dr. V Mohan, the man known as the superstar of diabetes care, the chairman of Dr. Mohan's Diabetes Specialities Center in Chennai, recognized as one of the India's foremost experts in diabetes care and research. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Mohan.
Thank you, Chetna. Thank you for the kind words.
Doctor, let's split this interview into 3 parts. First, challenges in diagnosis, next, the management, and finally, the possibility of a cure or reversal of this condition that is usually being discussed now.
Okay.
Doctor, first of all, my first question is, what is the current state of diabetes in the country?
So, the diabetes is, as you know, is increasing day by day in India. And the latest figures come from the ICMR INDIAB study, which is a nationwide study which was conducted in every state and every union territory of the country. And according to that study, which was published last year, there are now 101 million people with diabetes in India. And even more is the number of pre-diabetes, that is 136 million people with pre-diabetes, a stage before diabetes. So if you add both together, diabetes plus pre-diabetes in India, it's 237 million people. And this is an astounding figure because there are not too many countries in the world which have 237 million population itself. And so if India, just the number of people with diabetes and pre-diabetes as a country, it'll probably be the 5th or the 6th largest country in the world, that itself. So that shows the magnitude of the problem. In fact, we have another paper coming out quite soon, and unfortunately I can't tell you the results of that. It'll probably be published next week in a very top journal where the numbers are even much higher and alarmingly high numbers, which will probably come out next week. And this is just because different criteria were used. We used very conservative criteria in the ICMR INDIAB study. But if you use other criteria like using HbA1c for diagnosis, which is used in the new paper, then the numbers go up considerably more. But even so, even with the 101 million itself, that is almost more than the population of UK, Germany, France, and all the other major countries in the world. So that itself shows the number of people with diabetes that we have in our country is very, very big.
Absolutely. My next question was that, is it true that many people do not even know that they have diabetes? I mean, this is what the numbers are showing, but do you consider this as a challenge? Not knowing
yes,
that.
not only in India, but all over the world, about half of the people who have diabetes don't know that they have it. And the reason for that is also very simple. Diabetes is a silent killer, as we call it. It's an asymptomatic disease. And only half the people, the symptoms manifest, and therefore they go for a checkup and then they find out that they have diabetes. The other half, only when we go to their homes or when they come for a checkup to the hospital, or sometimes what happens is that the spouse may come and the husband or the wife will say, okay, we'll check the spouse also. And then they find that they have diabetes. Sometimes the children come along, and because the parents had diabetes, then we check them and then we find. So it's true to say that about half of the people with diabetes do not even know that they have the disorder. And this is even more worrying, because all that time when they don't know that they have the disorder, damage is going on inside the body. And therefore, routine screening of diabetes, especially for all people above 20 or 30 years of age, should be done once in a year. If that is done, then we can pick up the early stages of diabetes. And
so you're saying as young as 20 should go in for a routine diagnosis of diabetes?
Yes, if the family history of diabetes is there as early as 20 years, if there's no family history of diabetes, I would say 30 or 35 years would be good.
And when you say test for diabetes, what are the tests that they need to do?
So the minimum test is a fasting blood glucose, which means the empty stomach, you take the glucose test from the blood and then you can test it. But the ideal test to do is what is called as a GTT, an oral glucose tolerance test. So we take the fasting sample, then we give them a glucose drink to drink, about 300 ml of water. We put some lime juice and then dissolve 75 grams of glucose, and then they drink it. And at the end of 1 hour and 2 hours, we repeat the test. And if we find that the sugar is going up after giving the glucose load, then that's the best the test to diagnose. We call it as a gold standard. There are other tests. A random blood sugar taken at any time of the day, if it's more than 200 milligrams on more than 2 occasions, and that is diabetes. There's a test called HbA1c, 3 months control test. If that test also shows above 6.5%, that can also be taken as diabetes. So any of these tests are enough, either a fasting or an oral glucose tolerance test or a random sugar or a HbA1c test. Any of these are enough to diagnose diabetes.
Okay. So how does diabetes management differ for young adults compared to older individuals?
Not that it differs in a classic sense that you use different drugs or different kinds of treatment, although some of the drugs which are used in older people may not be suitable for young, and those which are used in young people may not be suitable for very old people. But that apart, most of the drugs remain the same. But where young people have to be more careful is because they've got a much longer life ahead of them. So diabetes complications normally set in after 10, 20 years duration. So if you get diabetes when you're 60 or 70 years old, you're talking about complications if you reach 90 years of age and so on. And also, when you get it at an older age, it tends to be milder. So the chances of getting complications are also less. Imagine somebody gets it when they're 20 years old. You add 20 years to that, they're only 40. And by 40, they're already at risk of going blind or losing their limb, amputation, kidney failure, heart attacks. Moreover, when they get it at young age, it seems to be a more aggressive form of diabetes, a more severe form of diabetes, and they are more prone to get complications of diabetes, more difficult to control the diabetes also. So the younger you get the diabetes, the worse off you are. The older you get it, the better it is for you.
So when you're talking about diagnosis, I know when you're diagnosed at an earlier age, what normally happens is people are worried to start on medication per se. The moment you go to a doctor and say that you have to take this particular medicine, they get worried. First is they will avoid that, and it is known that it is a lifestyle disease, so they would want to probably work on the lifestyle. I don't know how much of it they can manage, but they say no to drug first of all. And the second thing is the moment you say take insulin, that's like they go into a panic mode. So what is your message to these? How do we address this particular issue? When do we actually start medication? When do we go with the insulin? So what is it like?
You very rightly touched a point which is very sensitive to people, because the moment you say you have to take medicines, first question they'll ask for how long, and then the truth is it's lifelong. But then if you tell them that, then they get even lifelong. All my life I have to take medicine. They get even more upset. So we tell them, let's start. We'll see how it goes. Because to be fair, in the very early stages, if somebody is diagnosed within, say, 1 year, 2 years of diabetes, and let's say they're overweight or obese, if they lose 5 to 10 kilograms in weight, there's a very good chance that the diabetes can go into remission. And then they don't need medication at all. So there is a possibility of doing that, but it's only about 5 to 10% of people. We should not think that all the 100% of people can do that. So when we tell people you have to take medication, they think, oh, this then for lifelong I'm stuck with this and so on. That worries them. But what doesn't worry them is that if your diabetes is not controlled, you can become blind, or you can go into kidney failure, or you can have an amputation, your leg can be chopped off, or you can get a heart attack. You can die basically due to uncontrolled diabetes. You can go into a coma. That people don't accept and they don't worry about. They're only worried about, how will I take this pill every day? Now, these pills are known to be absolutely safe. That's the other thing. If I take medicines, I'll develop kidney problem. If I take medicines, my liver will go. If I take medicines, I may get cancer or something else will happen. This is what has been ingrained into them. It is not true, because the dosages of medicines given are so small that if you take them regularly, judiciously, under the doctor's supervision, and when necessary, we'll even reduce the dose of the, when possible, we'll even reduce the dose of the medicines. And therefore, having treated patients for 50, 60, 70 years now, I can tell you that there is no such thing as if you take it, your kidney will get damaged or something else will get damaged. More important to keep the sugar under control, your HbA1c under control, your cholesterol under control, your blood pressure under control, your weight under control. You should not smoke, reduce alcohol, if possible, give up alcohol. These are the sleep well on time, regularly exercise, eat a fairly healthy diet. These are the general principles of treatment of diabetes. If you follow all that, even if you need to take one tablet or two tablets, it really doesn't matter. It's not going to affect you. If on the other hand, your whole aim of treatment is to get rid of the medicine, to stop insulin, to get rid of medicine, if that is going to be your aim, perpetually you are going to be out of control, and then your risk of developing complications increase. You mentioned insulin. Now, insulin is not needed in the majority of patients. The majority of patients have type 2 diabetes, which is about 90 to 95% of all types of diabetes that we see in India and in the world. People with type 2 diabetes very rarely need insulin. That means 90 to 95% of patients don't need insulin. If you are in that 1 to 2% of patients who have type 1 diabetes, that's an insulin dependent type of diabetes, where if you stop insulin, the chance of you dying is very high, because you'll go into a diabetic coma, because there's not a drop of insulin in your body. And you might need to take 3 or 4 injections of insulin per day just for survival. Now, that is a very more severe form, more serious form of diabetes. And there is no question of stopping insulin. If you stop insulin, it's equivalent to a death sentence. It's like committing suicide if you stop insulin. But the majority of patients, 90 to 95%, as I said, are type 2. And in type 2, insulin is very rarely needed. We have now some 8 or 10 types of tablets and other injections and so on which have come, which are as good, if not better, than insulin. So insulin is only rarely needed. And if needed also, they may need 1 shot a day. That too may be short term. So we don't have to worry about insulin in everyone unless you have type 1 diabetes. If you have type 1 diabetes, you definitely have to take insulin 3, 4, 5 times a day. Today we have got insulin pumps, which you just wear it. It's like a small pager. You wear it on outside your body, on your belt, and the small cannula which goes in under the skin you can put it. Automatically the pump gives you the right dose of insulin. It measures your blood sugar, decides how much to give. You don't have to poke yourself with the insulin injection needles and so on. And it's made life so much easier for those with type 1 diabetes and some severe cases of type 2 diabetes as well. Insulin pump is one of the greatest discoveries which have come. It's almost like an artificial pancreas. It's still giving you insulin, but it makes your life so much easier because you don't have to inject yourself. You don't have to measure your blood sugar, because the machine does that and then decides how much, using AI, artificial intelligence, is able to decide how much insulin to give. So that has made life of people with diabetes much easier.
Okay. So, this is probably the most commonest question that I'm sure your patients also ask you. Diet does play a crucial role in managing diabetes. And there is this always being a South Indian, we have seen that you have done several research papers are out from your own center about how South Asians and here South Indians per se have the number of diabetes is high in this area because of rice eating. So there's this debate between whether rice, ragi ball, wheat, or none of this. There is this whole debate that's going on. So what is the ideal food that, a person with diabetes can actually eat?
So rice, wheat, ragi, they're all carbohydrates. They all contain about 70% carbohydrate. So there is not too much of advantage in changing over from rice to wheat or from wheat to ragi or to other millets. Because millets do have a little more extra protein, a little more fiber, some phytonutrients. They do have some advantages, no doubt, but still they are carbohydrate. So whether you take rice, wheat, chapati, puri or bread or millets or ragi or whatever, the quantity has to be reduced. So we talk of the plate concept, thali concept or the plate concept. So what we say in the thali concept is, don't focus on your carbohydrate, don't focus on your rice and wheat or ragi or millets to start with. Half of that plate, you take the full plate, thali, divide it into half. Half of it should be filled with vegetables. And these vegetables should be green, leafy, non-starchy vegetables. So you can have lettuce or cabbage or beans or spinach or asparagus or broccoli or whatever you want as green leafy vegetables. Those are very low in calorie, very high in nutrients, very high in iron, B12, all the nutrients that you need. It will prevent you from getting anemic. Everything it gives you, all the nutrients that you need. So half the plate should be filled with vegetables, non-starchy. I'm not talking about potato or beetroot and yam and things like that, which are tapioca and so on, which are full of starch. I'm talking about non-starchy. Then you got the other half of the plate. Quarter of the other half of the plate you keep for protein. If you're a non-vegetarian, you can have fish, you can have chicken, you can have white of the egg or even whole egg. The last, if you're vegetarian, you can have Bengal gram, green gram, black gram, rajma, tofu, paneer, or any other beans, lentils, anything which is vegetable protein. So that quarter part of the plate you keep for either animal protein or vegetable protein, plant protein. Then the last part, that is what you keep for your carbs. So already you can see you've pushed your rice or wheat or ragi or millet or whatever you're taking to the last quarter. So there you have a little bit of rice or one chapati or little bit of ragi. Like that, if you're able to take it with a carbohydrate reduced, you still get your carbohydrate, but you're getting a lot of protein, you're getting fiber, you're getting vegetables, you're getting vitamins, you're getting minerals, you're getting a balanced diet, and you're getting little of carbohydrate, protein, fat all put together. Right now, Indians take about 65 to 70% carbohydrate. Morning carbohydrate, afternoon carbohydrate, evening carbohydrate, night carbohydrate. We keep on taking carbs. It's just too much. That's why your sugar levels go up and we have so much of diabetes. If you're able to reduce the carbs, increase the protein and the fiber, particularly from vegetable protein, then you will do very well and you don't have to worry. So that's the best way of taking it. If you completely cut off carbs, it's very difficult, because then what happens is protein you can't get more than 20% in your diet. Right now, Indians take 10% protein. We are trying to make it 20%, which itself is a big challenge. Where does the other 80% come from? It can only come from fat or from carbohydrate. If you eliminate carbs completely, like the keto diet and so on, make it zero carbs, 5%, 10% carb, you will end up taking 70% of fat. That means big chunks of meat or other fat you are going to take, which is very unhealthy. Your LDL will go up, cholesterol will go up, and you'll be more prone to heart attacks. So must balance it out. Take little of the carbohydrate, take protein enough, and then take healthy fats, what we call as monounsaturated fats. This comes from nuts, from seeds, from oils like olive oil. Of course, is good, but it's not meant for Indian cooking. Mediterranean diet, they take that. But we can take, say, groundnut oil, gingerly oil, mustard oil. These are all high in monounsaturated fats. All nuts are rich in monounsaturated fat. They're very good. And then, of course, you have the polyunsaturated fat, which is your sunflower oil, safflower oil, some of the other oils like rice bran oil. All these also contain good mixtures of mono and polyunsaturated fat. But coconut oil, palm oil, these are all saturated fat, and they're very high in, they can increase your LDL level. Ghee
Coconut
also
oil
is
as well, sir?
saturated fat. Sorry?
Coconut oil as well. Lot of
Coconut
people
oil as well.
suggest.
Coconut oil is definitely saturated fat. And palm oil is also saturated fat. Ghee is saturated fat. Not that you should not take it, but you should take smaller quantities of it. For example, in Kerala, they take only they only take coconut oil. But then you may say, then how are Keralites living so long if it is so bad? They also take a lot of fish. They also take a lot of vegetables. They take a lot of. So it's not one thing in isolation which is good or bad. It's a total mixture of your diet. You must get from all the food groups, little carbs, little protein, little fat, healthy fats, nuts, seeds. Then dahi and curd is again a good source of antioxidant. 1 glass of milk per day. You should not take more than that. Just 1 glass of milk
One
per day.
glass of, is there any ml which you can take, say?
About 250 ml of milk, if you
We
are
can
able to
divide
take.
that through the day.
Milk 250 is very little. If you're taking, see, ideally, it's better not to take more than that. You can take curd, yogurt, and curd you can take. But you're taking 1 glass of milk, it gives you about 500 milligrams of calcium, and that is enough for you if
Okay.
you're taking that. Especially for a man, that's more than enough. For a lady, maybe postmenopausal, you might need a calcium supplement in addition to that glass of milk. But I think 1 glass of milk should be more than enough.
Doctor, there is this, there is this, again, some people suggest that you eat, people with diabetes should eat 6 times a day. And some people say, no, go for intermittent fasting that helps
Intermittent
in diabetes
fasting.
management.
Yeah.
So what really is the ideal way to eat for a
Yeah, I
person?
think 6 is a bit too much. Probably 6 is adding 2 little snacks in between. So that's called the small frequent feed principle. You take little breakfast, you take one dosa, one idli or something. After 2 3 hours, you have one more idli. Then don't allow the sugar to go up. Little spikes only. If you take a lot of food at one time, your sugar will go up like that. So you get this big thing, then followed by a big drop and so on. Now, intermittent fasting is known to have certain benefits. The main benefit is if your total calories come down. Suppose you take morning and say evening and then nothing after that, only 2 meals, and that too in limited quantities. Definitely your calories will come down. And therefore, intermittent fasting is good. And you're also not eating in between. So, for digestion and all, it's much better because you'll really feel hungry and you'll eat. So, intermittent fasting has its benefits. But if you look at the studies which have shown improvement in diabetes, unless the calories come down, it's not going to help you. If you have a huge breakfast and a huge dinner and say, I've had only 2 meals per day, but they're really huge, they're going to spike your sugars like anything. So, intermittent fasting is of so many types. You can have 8-hour fast, 6-hour fast, 12-hour fast, even 24-hour fast, all that you have. So,
Is
and for
intermittent
people,
fasting safe for people with diabetes, sir? Is it
no,
safe?
that's the other thing. I was just coming to that. See, if you are on medication, now you are on medication, let's say you're on insulin, you're in type 1, insulin dependent type 1, and you've taken your insulin. Now, if you go on a fast, that insulin will keep working and that will produce low sugar. Unless you're on a pump, then the pump will decide if you're not taken, pump won't give you insulin because AI is built into it. But most people are not on pump. They are already injected the insulin. If they injected the insulin, they have to eat their lunch at say 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Otherwise, you're going to get low sugar. So now, if you're going to do intermittent fasting and you're on insulin, the chance of you getting low sugar is quite high. Okay. So therefore, in general, it's better to have small, frequent feeds rather than have the intermittent fasting. But there's no one size fits all. So, and there are people who are very happy doing this intermittent fasting, and they claim that after that they do well. So, I have no problem with it. Whatever suits your lifestyle, you can do. There are people who do intermittent fasting and develop gastritis because they don't
Right.
eat. They develop severe gastritis. So, such things are also not good for some people.
Okay, sir, I have one last question. I mean, two more questions for you. One is diabetes really reversible? Can you actually reverse diabetes?
So I have an ABCDEF mantra for diabetes reversal. So A is A1C. If your A1C is not very high, see normal is 5.6, up to 7 we say it's okay for a diabetic. Let's say it's 8, it is still reversal is possible. If it is 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, your chance of reversal goes down because you're having very severe diabetes. So A. B is the body weight. If your body weight is more, your chance of losing that weight is also there. So if your BMI or body weight is more, your chance of going to reversal is more. If you're already very thin, what are you going to lose to reverse your diabetes? So body weight is also important. The heavier you are, the greater the chance of losing weight and going to remission. C stands for C-peptide. C-peptide is the amount of insulin that your body secretes. So if you are secreting a lot of insulin, your C-peptide will be good. Your chance of going to remission is more. If your pancreas is already burnt out and you don't have C-peptide at all, like in type 1, reversal is very, very difficult. D stands for duration of diabetes. So if your duration of diabetes is short, let's say below 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, your chance of reversing is much more. You already finished 10, 15, 20 years, reversal becomes then very difficult. Then E stands for enthusiastic individual. You have to be a highly enthusiastic, highly motivated individual, because you're going to follow that diet not for 1 month, not for 2 months, but lifelong. Okay, if you want to stay in remission, the moment you start overeating, your diabetes will come back. That means you need a highly motivated, highly enthusiastic individual. So that is E. F is follow-up. For frequent follow-up is very important, because people, what they do, they lose weight, they try all kinds of crash diets, keto diet, something, they'll knock off all their carbs, and then the sugar will crash, the weight will crash, they go off medication, and they are very, very happy about it. If you call them and say, please come back for review, they say, why should we come? We are now cured of diabetes. You're not cured, you're only gone to remission. Okay. So what happens is, after some time, they believe that they are completely cured. So they'll start eating all the sweets, they'll forget everything, they'll put on weight again, they'll come back with a bang. The sugar will be much worse than when they started. So it's like cancer coming back. When the cancer comes back, metastasis is much worse than the primary cancer. So like that, when the re-reversal occurs and diabetes comes back, it comes back much worse. And this time now you'll need insulin or heavy doses of tablets to control. So this A, B, C, D, E, F, if you're able to remember, if you put all the A, B, C, D, E, F together, in my calculation, 5% of people, maximum 10% of people, that too with type 2 diabetes, not type 1 or the other form, with type 2 diabetes, about 5 to 10% may be able to achieve remission. Out of that, 50% will lose the remission within few months, and they'll go out of remission. Very few have stayed for more than a year or two. Of course, there are 1 or 2 lucky people whose diabetes itself came due to some stress or something. Stress goes away and they are permanently in remission. I've had 1 or 2, even after 10 years, they are in remission. But if you see something triggered it, and then the triggering factor went away, it may be COVID which triggered, and then steroids given during COVID produced diabetes. Now they are not on steroids, they're not having COVID, diabetes goes away. Those are not real remission cases. They're just temporary cases of diabetes. But real remission is possible, but in a very few patients only. The rest of them have to take regular treatment. It doesn't matter at all, because I have seen patients who have finished 50, 60, 70 years of diabetes. They are now 100 years old. Some of them are 104, 105 years old now. After 70 years of diabetes, they are doing well. So what does it matter if you're not achieved remission? You've crossed the normal age of non-diabetic. If he lives for 70 years, the diabetic is living for 100, 105 years. They already got 70 years diabetes. There's no complication. They've lived their full life. They're still taking medication. What does it matter? It doesn't matter. To me, I don't see it as a problem at all. Ultimately, we are doing this to have a healthy life, to live a long life, and not to have complication. All that you can achieve even with diabetes. So why do you bother?
Yes, sir. One last question. As we observe World Diabetes Day and the theme, being access to diabetes care, what is your key message to the government of India, sir?
That everybody with diabetes should be given basic treatment, basic minimum treatment, basic minimum follow-up of the treatment has to be done. In fact, I wish to congratulate the government of India for setting up these 150,000 wellness centers which they've set up, and through that they are giving care to all over the country through the Ayushman Bharat scheme and through other programs. So that is fantastic, no doubt. We should expand that and go on. Tamil Nadu government has gone even one step further. They are going to people's homes and checking their sugars there, blood pressure there, giving medicines there, Now today's papers say that they are going to check the eyes, kidneys, heart, feet of all these people. So
Karnataka
that's
also
a
is doing
very
that.
Karnataka is also doing it. I'm sure every government should do that. And once you're able to do that, I think then you're actually reaching people in their homes and motivating them. And if the government is taking on that role, then I think nothing like that. And they're giving it free. So then people have no excuse now not to look after their diabetes. And even if that is not so, you're not in that free category, but you're going to a doctor, and even if you're paying for it, consider it like an insurance. Because once you go and take the treatment regularly from the doctor who's treating you, he or she, the doctor who's treating you, will look after you and see that you don't develop any complications. If you develop the complications, let's say you develop kidney complications, for example, and you have to do dialysis and so on, the amount that you will be spending just to remain alive will be much more than your diabetes treatment that you would have paid for. So it's better to have your own legs, your own eyes, your own kidneys, which God gave us, and have good quality of life. And for that, frequent follow-up with the doctor is very important. That's why this access to care has been put as the World Diabetes theme. Everybody must have access. In cities, it is okay. But in rural areas and villages, access is not that good. So I think they must also have access to basic diabetes care.
Thank you very much, doctor. It was wonderful speaking to you. That is all we have for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.